Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Safe Room. I am your host, the President Sean Williams, and today we have another episode for you today. I'm so excited to have this person because it's been a long time coming, and surprisingly, we've only met each other, I think, once in person, which is absolutely crazy. But I had to get her here for this episode. She is someone who is specializes in financial literacy, budget planning, you name it. And I've been seeing just some of the fantastic work she's been doing, whether it's, being present at conferences, teaching seminars. She's definitely doing her thing. And I'm so excited to have her on the podcast. You might hear this name on Instagram, Finance for the Culture. We have today the wonderful Miss Shay Myers. Shay, how are you doing?
Hey, thanks for having me. Yes, it's interesting that we've only met a couple times, but yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited for this conversation. Any opportunity to amplify financial literacy, I am there.
Yes, of course, of course. I'm excited as well because, financial literacy is definitely something, a lot of people are trying to learn in terms of just the different concepts, how they can apply it to their own personal lifestyle and just be able to live financial stress free. Just not have that stress in the back of your head because sometimes it gets to you. Sometimes you have to worry about, I got to pay a bill here. I got to worry about like this and that. So it becomes an ongoing struggle. So I'm definitely excited to have you on. We're going to talk about some financial literacy, just the stuff that you do. And hopefully, we'll be able to do a couple activities. So for all the listeners out there, you'll get to, hear some gems. Definitely get your notebooks out because this is definitely going to feel like a lecture, but a good lecture. Not those boring lectures, but like a good lecture where you're taking some information.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. So before we get into the main questions, let's get into our first segment, the hot seat. So Shay, it's just four simple questions I have for you and just make sure that you answer them to your best abilities, okay?
Okay.
No, no, I don't worry. I can see like you're just kind of like, oh, where's this gonna go? I'm not sure.
No, I'm like, what kind of questions they gonna ask?
Don't worry. You got this. You got this. So outside of your work and someone who again specializes in financial literacy and is someone who you can consider to be like an educator in a sense, tell me something about yourself in one sentence.
Hmm. In one sentence, I am a vibrant, patient, inclusive community connector.
You
Hmm.
hit a lot of different words: vibrant, inclusive, community. I feel like this is probably something you've thought about in terms of just if someone
Oh,
popped the
yeah.
question.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't have to use a resume now, but back when I was in the position of applying for jobs, I wanted to make my resume different. So at the top, under my name, I put kind of like a slogan, and it was vibrant, patient, inclusive, just so that people who were taking a quick glance at the resume, they could see, oh, these are three words that she uses to describe herself. And I've ran with that for a very long time. So on LinkedIn, I use that as well. And I really think those three words really encompass who I am. I typically have a lot of high energy, very vibrant, friendly, inclusive. I always want everyone to feel welcome. I'm super empathetic and patient. I have a lot of patience, and I don't know where I learned that from, but it's helped me in my career and in life. But that's one word that a lot of people use to describe me, especially being now in the educator field. I'm a very patient person, and so I've definitely embodied those three words. And then community connector. I like to consider myself to be kind of like a black business directory. People message me, hey, do you know a black tax person? Do you know a company that does this or that? And I usually do. And so I am able to connect people, and I do intentionally like connecting people who can help other people. And I've also learned to like summarize myself in a very concise way. And so, you know,
Yeah, I think that's a very important skill, being able to kind of take aspects of yourself and just condense it to where it comes off a little bit more easier to the listener or to someone who may be reviewing you. You mentioned resume. I think that's a perfect example. And I love
Yeah,
how, you took that sentence and it's like, that's going to be right on the top of my resume because you want something that's going to stick out.
exactly. Yeah.
I feel you. I feel you. That's really good. Yeah, okay, perfect, perfect. Okay, let's go on to the next question. So I want you to name a financial conflict in your personal life that you overcame.
Hmm. Financial conflict. Mm, okay, so way back when my phone bill went to collections because I wasn't paying the bill. And I ended up doing a settlement. So, for those who don't know, a settlement bill lets you pay a portion of what you owe instead of the full thing. So, I ended up doing that just to get this account cleared out. And then years later, people were calling me down saying that, hey, you still owe this money. And I was just like, I know I paid this off already. This seems sketchy. Turns out it was. They accidentally reopened an account that should have been closed. And so I overcame that by being curious and not believing everything that I, hear essentially. And also not acting on impulse. 'Cause a lot of people would have been like, oh, snap, let me pay this because I just want to get it over with. But you do have to be curious, especially when it comes to your finances as well. You do need to be curious and you do need to stay on top of things. So I would say that's a conflict that I overcame.
Wow, I mean, when it comes to phone bills, anyone listening, that's probably like their kryptonite. Once you get that bill in, it's like, I don't know. It's a spooky time. I can understand.
Yeah. And also, too, just a tidbit, you want to avoid things going to collection. So debt accounts go to collections after 90 days of non-payment, and it gets real scary over on that side because it's third-party collectors who just want to get money from you. They don't really care. They're there to do a job, and eventually they do make your life a living hell. So if you can avoid your debt accounts from going to collections, you'll save yourself a lot of headache because usually those things will stay on your report for a long time unless you request to get it off. And then those people, they don't really want to help you because that's not their job. So try your best to pay things on time. And if you do need help, because of missed payments, get that help. But really do everything you can to avoid getting into collections because it's not fun.
Yeah, definitely for sure. Okay, the third question. Name an interesting fact that you rarely share about yourself.
I really love singing. I love
Oh,
love singing. I love dancing. Yeah, I would say that. And then a bonus interesting fact, I love heights. So anything that's thrill seeking, roller coasters, heights, like I haven't been skydiving before, but I'd love to go. I've done the edge walk on the CN Tower. I like going zip lining. I love all of those things.
okay. So you're kind of like a daredevil in a way, just like I like to just be very adventurous.
If you want to call it that, yeah. I realize that people, so I say that I love heights, and people are always like, I've never met someone who says they love heights. I think that people are afraid of heights because they're afraid to die. I don't think it's necessarily, I don't like being up high. It's more like if I fall, I might die. So for me, I don't think that way. I just think positively and I like to enjoy things. And so when I do these daredevil things, I'm not thinking like of the worst that can happen. I'm just thinking this is going to be an exciting adventure. So I think that's part of why I enjoy those things.
Well, that's good. And you did mention singing and dancing. So is there like a specific song that you're liking at the moment, or do you do like karaoke perhaps?
I never do karaoke. Yep, I'm a hidden shower singer. A song, oh gosh, I can't think of one right now, but my musical taste is all over the place. So R&B, hip hop, Afrobeats, all of that. Yeah.
Well, that's good to hear. That's good to hear. All right. Moving on to the final question for this segment. What is your personal safe room?
Hmm. Expand. Like expand, like what does that mean? I have an idea of what it means, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Of course, of course, of course. So, like, what is a safe space that you kind of consider for yourself where you're able to be authentic, you're able to just be yourself, genuine, where you're not worried about what other people are thinking about you, or you're not worried about like just other thoughts that are clouding like your own personal, just like your personality in a way. Like, what's a safe space for you?
everywhere. Like, to be honest, it's taken a long time for me to get. I mean, of course, you don't really, there's no crash course on how to become confident in yourself. And there's a lot of things in the world that distract us from going within. But I'm pretty confident in who I am. And it's a blessing to be able to be so genuine in the work that I do as well. There's no red tape because I'm self-employed. So I'm able to just be myself. And it doesn't matter where I am. It could be a school setting, it could be a corporate setting, obviously, no time and place and read the room, but there's no place where I don't feel comfortable. And that's a blessing for sure.
Yeah, that's good. Like you might be the first person to say that their safe space or safe room was everything, because usually everyone, it's kind of like, oh, I'm not it's one area, or maybe it's this or that. You're probably the first
hmm
one to actually be just everywhere, so that's pretty interesting.
I think there's many factors that
Yeah.
play into that, but yeah, I would say when people know you for certain things, sometimes that will affect your ability to be genuine in different areas. But again, it is a blessing and a plus to have my own business. And so there is nobody telling me that I can't be a certain way. And because my business is financial literacy meant to be relatable for, marginalized communities and the everyday folk, me being genuine is such a huge part of what makes my business successful. So I have to be able to be myself and be comfortable with myself no matter where I am, right? So,
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Okay, cool. That's good. Or now we're gonna get into the main question. So that was the warm up. Let's get to the main pieces now. So Shay, if you don't mind, please share with us just what finance for the culture is and what it represents to you. And before you answer that, I just want to say finance for the culture is a dope name. That is a dope name.
thanks.
Honestly, what I like to do for my podcast episode, I like to come up with like clever, like titles. And I'm not gonna lie, I kind of want like, yo, should I ask Shay? Like, can I just borrow your business name, because that's a clever title on its own. I mean, it's so
Yeah,
unique and it stands out immediately. So just explain what finance for the culture is and what it represents to you.
for sure. So I actually started off with financially attractive because when I first wanted to improve my financial habits, I just wanted to feel financially attractive to myself. I didn't feel financially attractive. My credit score was trash. I had no savings. I had no investments. I didn't really understand how money worked. My spending habits were horrible. And so I wanted to become more financially attractive to myself. So that's what my first page was. And then my blog is still broke to financially attractive blogspot.com. But yeah, one day, I don't know, I would like to think I have a way with words. I used to write back in the day, and Finance for the Culture just came to me, and I said, I need to scoop this up and use it because as much as, there is a focus and a highlight on the marginalized communities, because we experience a lot of barriers when it comes to education, information, all of that stuff, the culture is more than just Black folk. The culture is the everyday masses, like the everyday masses of people, right? You know, young folk, old folk, everybody who just doesn't get that financial education that they need to survive, to thrive, right? So it just stuck. It sounds great. And, it's all about providing accessible, digestible financial education to the everyday Canadian. And it's blown up to what it is because it's a catchy name. And I have a lot of people, they'll see me and they say finance for the culture. And I'm like, you don't know my name, do you? Even though it's on my Instagram page. Like, you literally know me as finance for the culture. But yeah, it was just one of those things. It's witty, it sounds cool, it's self-explanatory as well. And the main focus is just simplifying financial literacy so that everybody can improve their financial habits.
Yeah, I think it's really excellent branding as well. Because again, it's something that kind of you remember off the jump when you hear that. It's like, oh yeah, like I could definitely relate, and I love how you distinguish. It's not just like black culture, because I'm pretty sure if you're a black individual, you think finance or culture, like, oh yeah, like it's for us and
Yeah,
everything like that. But again, sometimes it's just how like words they have different meanings and explanations. But for you, it's like no, it's everyone. Like we are the culture, and I love how you offer that type of educational pieces in terms of financial literacy, because like you mentioned, not a lot of us get that financial education, especially if you're someone who's in school, depending on which school you go to. I'm gonna be honest, in high school I didn't hear that much on financial literacy or anything like that, so it was up to me to kind of do my own digging and discovery outside of like high school and even like university to extend to know a little bit more
yeah.
about financial literacy. So I really love how you're trying to like fill in those missing gaps with your skills and your expertise, because I think it's really important, especially during the times we live right now. Financial literacy is on the highest of all highs.
Yeah, no, for sure. And also too, so I knew that they'd introduced financial literacy to schools in Ontario 2019 September, I believe, but because I'm actually in the schools doing workshops with these students, I'm getting their feedback and they're telling me that it's actually an elective, so it's not required. And then also too, it's very impractical. And so as much as we can commend, the government or whatever for making steps, I guess a little bit is better than nothing, but is it actually enough, right? Leave high school, they get into college and university, they have no idea how to budget properly, they don't know anything about credit and debt, and it just puts them further into a hole. And one of my biggest missions is, get the youth, educate the youth so that they can make better decisions when they move to the next chapters of their lives, and so that they can influence their friends and their parents and all the generations. So it's fun for me because I always tell people that, finance and money is really fun and enjoyable to talk about when you actually know what's going on. When you don't know what's going on, you hear all these things, Bank of Canada, interest rates, you're just like, what is happening? When you understand what's going on, you're like, yeah, like I know exactly what's happening here. And it gives you a sense of confidence that is necessary to make better financial decisions.
Yes, absolutely. And since we're kind of talking about just, your passion and wanting to teach financial literacy, I want to go on to the next question. So, was this something where it was a product of your own personal issues? So, did you get started in what you were doing because you felt you had your own issues or problems with, managing financial literacy? Or was it something, again, it was just this passion and something you kind of grabbed a hold on and you wanted to, learn and be able to, give those educational pieces back to those individuals? So which one was it? Was it more of a byproduct to your personal life, or was it something, again, you had a passion towards and you just kind of worked to it?
So it was both. It started off as a byproduct. So I was a client first who needed help with my finances, and I, went to a financial literacy workshop. It was free. I learned so much there, and I asked the facilitator to help me because at that time I had about $200 to my name. My credit score was about 476, but I just got a full-time job. So I was like, okay, I'm going to be making really good money. I need to manage it better. Like, I need someone to help me come up with a plan so that I know every month I'm saving this much. I'm working towards this. I need guidance, right? So she created a plan for me, and, I did a lot in a short period of time, right? In a year, I ended up saving $10,000 in 5 months, $30,000 by month nine, and then I also invested $20,000 by the end of that year. And she was like, you need to teach other people what you just did because you kind of went from zero to 100. And I was like, nah, I'm making great money. Like, I don't want to get my financial advisor license. Like, I'm good, right? But as I went on my journey, I realized I love teaching. So that's kind of where that passion has always been there. My passion for teaching in general. I was an English tutor, ESL instructor in college. So I love teaching and I have a lot of patience and empathy. So now that I've kind of flipped my life upside down for the better when it comes to finances, I was like, if I can combine these two, like that would be pretty much a dream career. So I did end up going to get my license, and here we are. So yeah, it's a combination of my love for teaching and wanting to help people, and then also seeing how, wow, I went from 0 to 100 within a short period of time. Why can't other people do that? If they get the information and they get the guidance, all they have to do is implement what they're learning, and they could also see amazing progress. And here we are.
Wow, I absolutely love that. There's such a progression from just how it started to completely now. And I appreciate you for being honest when it came to when the person asked you, yeah, you should do this. You're just like, nah, I'm good. I'm making
Yeah,
money.
I was
It's
like,
just like
nah.
yeah, because like sometimes you tell yourself that, you tell yourself that it's just I'm making money. Like, why am I gonna put all my time and effort to now like do this? It's just like I'm doing good for myself. But again, sometimes like things change and things happen for a reason, and eventually it led to you again wanting to learn a bit more and help others with their own like financial situation. You mentioned that you were English tutor, so that's another skill set that goes in, to place, being able to teach these pieces. There's a high proficiency of English right there, so it kind of goes hand in hand. So yeah, everything kind of just aligned very well for you.
Yeah. So I decided that I was going to study and get my license. And in the middle of me studying, I actually got let go from this amazing paying job that I had, right? So because I was studying to get my license, now I was on my way to having a source of income that was controlled by me because I'm an independent, self-employed financial advisor, right? So it all worked out because I had an emergency fund, which my advisor helped me build. So now that I didn't have that nice paying job, I still had my emergency fund, I still had savings, and a couple, maybe like a month later, I ended up getting my license. So then I could actually start making income from being a financial advisor. So everything does happen for a reason, because if I had said, nah, I don't want to try this out, when I got fired, I would have had no source of income. And so everything really does happen for a reason. I definitely believe that. But also, I feel like we have to take a chance on ourselves. We have to be willing to be the person who knows the least in the room as well, because I think a lot of people don't take chances because they don't want to be a beginner. They don't want to know less than other people. But you learn so much if you succumb to being a student. I think that's something that's important in every aspect, but especially the finance world, right? Like, people don't want to admit that they're not good with money or they have bad habits and stuff like that, but it's something that wasn't taught. It's something that's still there's so much information about that's not really like there's so much information that people get analysis paralysis. So it's okay if you don't know, and it's okay if you're starting from the bottom or you're a beginner. Allow yourself that grace to learn and grow.
I love that. That's kind of one of the few steps for anyone that's like, it's okay to admit that you're having those financial issues. Sometimes it's hard, and of course, like people take their own time to kind of open up to something like that. But it's definitely something where when you do, you feel a burden that's kind of lifting off your shoulders, or just that weight getting off of you, where you're not, stressing about it all the time because at least you said it out loud. And it's like, yeah, you know what?
Right.
I do have an issue and I need to fix it. So I really appreciate that you did mention that, because there are some people who definitely need to hear these types of things as well.
Yeah, and just one thing super quick. Most people are in the same boat as you. Like, people think that everything is happening to me, it's just me. Guaranteed. Like, when I sit down with clients and we're going over their financial needs analysis, which is just identifying what they have in place, what they don't have in place, what they need to get in place so that they can build a solid financial house. People will tell me their debt, and I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, I know somebody who has like twice as much debt, and they're like, really? They're like, oh my God, I think this is a lot for me. And I'm like, and that's valid. You can think that $10,000 of debt is a lot of debt, but there's always going to be someone worse than you. There's going to be 20 million people who are in the same boat as you, right? So sometimes we feel like we're the only ones going through it. And I can tell you, being on the ground level, talking to people, helping them with their finances, that there's so many people who are in the exact same boat as you. There's, experiencing similar things. And you will only be alone if you don't get help and you don't ask for help.
Yeah, so true, so true. Okay, so going on to the next question. So, When you're working with your clients, and this might be a very loaded question, so just bear with me how I try to describe it. How do you differentiate between like what some people are coming for you in terms of just like your services? Like, for example, do you feel like are some clients coming for just looking to build or improve their credit, or maybe there's some people coming for budgeting or investing? Like, how do you try your best to offer the right amount of information? And I'm not even to say like, you're probably still learning, you're still a student of the game. So there's things that maybe you're still picking up, but how do you try your best to offer as much, support and help depending on, what the clients are asking for? And again, that could differentiate from time to time.
Yeah. So the consultation, which I offer complimentary consultation, that is where I'm getting to know the person and they're getting to know me. So I share, what is it that I do, the companies that I'm partnered with, those kind of things. And I also get to know them like, hey, like, what is it about this time in your life where you feel like you need to get help with your finances? What are your biggest financial concerns? What are your biggest financial goals? Getting to know them, right? And through those questions and through me being curious, I uncover what they need to focus on, what needs to be the priorities, right? The next step is a financial needs analysis, which again is looking at the big picture of their situation. So looking at their cash flow. Do you have disposable income at the end of every month? If not, what can we do about it? If so, what can we do about it? What does your debt situation look like? Do you have insurance? Do you have investments? And from there, helping them create a plan to get to their goals. So I ask a lot of questions to figure out what they need help with. And sometimes what they think they need help with is not what they actually need help with. We have to prioritize the important things. So if a parent, for example, comes to me and says, hey, I need help with budgeting, but they don't have any sort of protection. They have kids, they have a spouse, they have dependents, they have responsibilities, they don't have any sort of protection. You know, that is a priority for them. Saving, we could do that at the same time, but my job is to highlight priorities based on their specific situation. Somebody else could come to me and say, I want to learn how to invest. Meanwhile, they don't have an emergency fund. Hey, if anything happens to you, you literally have to use debt to pay your bills. Let's focus on putting a plan so that you can build an emergency fund and we can start learning about investing, but that shouldn't necessarily be a priority for you right now. So the consultation and the financial needs analysis is supposed to highlight what their priorities need to be so that we can start building solutions. And also, too, some people come to me and they have tax related questions that are very specific. I will provide them resources for tax professionals because I'm not a tax professional, right? So as much as I know the basics and I'm able to explain certain things, when they have specific questions, business ownership stuff, I will send them to a tax professional. So the first two sessions are really trying to figure out what do you need help with and what's the first step. So that's how I figure out what people need from me.
Yeah, I think that's really good. The consultation calls are definitely like a strong way for being able to hear a little bit more of the client and what they're looking for. And you hit such a crucial point. Sometimes what they're asking for isn't really what they're asking for. So it kind of goes back to you having that patience because, and I get it, like
Yeah,
sometimes it's a little bit hard because for again, people may not have that financial education, or maybe it's hard for them to really explain what their issues are in words. So it really takes, the time and the commitment to really, listen to the client. It's like, okay, you're saying invest in, but I can hear from all the different points you're listening out. Maybe you're talking about something a little bit different, or maybe it's still investing, but there's a bigger issue ahead of it before the investment aspect. So, like, I do think that's so crucial that you're able to have that patience with those clients and kind of understand, like, listen, what you're saying may not be exactly what you're trying to tell me, but we're gonna see if we can work this out.
for sure. And like even just sharing certain concepts and the language as well. So I'm really big on the education part. So if someone does come to me, they want to learn about investing. Of course, we do the consultation, the financial needs analysis, identify what their priorities should be, And then when it is time to go over the investing, I do investing 101. So why do we invest? You know, what you need to know before you invest, the different types of investments. So there's a lot of education with it, which also helps with sharing the language because there is a certain language when it comes to finances, and being able to identify different things is really key. And yeah, I think that sometimes people just don't know, like they really don't know. They say, I need help with everything. Again, it's my job to simplify, to pinpoint, to help prioritize, and essentially guide them to where they need to go. Oh, I want to say one more thing. If you go into a bank, you will not get a one-on-one consultation. Everybody has a different business model. Unfortunately, the banks will spend more time and energy providing resources to the wealthy. If you want to sit down and actually build a relationship with an advisor, you need to have 6 figures of cash or 6 figures of investments. So please take advantage if anyone's listening and you want help with your finances. My consultations are complimentary. So it's really just to show you, hey, you have a resource here. This is who I am. This is what I do. You let me know about you, and we'll see how we can work together to create a plan. Because unfortunately, if you're not 6 figures savings or investments, you're not going to be able to build that relationship with an advisor through the bank. So again, me making it really accessible for people to come and ask questions and actually get help is how we're going to get to the next level. Like, how do people become wealthy if the banks won't even sit down with us and teach us anything? Just know that if you're wealthy, the banks can offer all the things in the world, but if you're not, the only thing the banks can really do is give us debt. So use the banks for what they're for. You do have to use their accounts and stuff in certain capacities. Like when you get a job, they want you to give them your banking information so they can deposit the money. But understand that there are better avenues when it comes to investing your money, and there are better avenues when it comes to getting the education and guidance on how to actually manage your money. But everyday folk aren't going to get all that they need from the banks.
Yeah, I think that's really important as well. So anyone listening out there, listen, CIBC, RBC, TD, they don't got you.
That's their business model, but we just have to understand that's what it is. Use them for what they're for. And when you're ready to diversify and invest your money and get that guidance, you have to look outside of the bank. That's just what it is.
Yes, absolutely perfect. Okay, so the next one's not really a question, it's more of an activity that I want to try out. And I know we've been talking about a lot about financial literacy, and I mentioned before budgeting, and I kind of want to go back to that, specifically a budget sheet. Now, for anyone, you're probably getting PTSD because you might have heard this in high school and your university days. So listen, basically what I want to do is maybe we could try to create a budget sheet using the following case study that I created. So again, I just tried my best to take some different things and try to create something that hopefully you could give your support or expertise to anyone listening so they can kind of hear something just as example of like, okay, maybe this is how I need to approach things. So for example, I'm kind of using the context of like entrepreneurs because I know there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there that's like they're looking to create a budget sheet or just to manage their finance, and sometimes it could be very like it's a hassle. So
Hmm.
I wrote down something where an entrepreneur receives like a $5,000 loan. Let's just say that, for example, and they have it to upstart their business, and they have to consider the following. So there's obviously rent, there's like inventory slash equipment, there's payroll for their employees, marketing as well, and also miscellaneous costs depending what those may be. So I want to see if you could probably, in the best way possible, maybe just figure out what are some of the more like what's the most important to least important to kind of focus on when creating a
Hmm.
budget sheet using the categories I listed out, and just how someone will be able to, just create a budget sheet that kind of aligns with what their business model is, but also their expenses doesn't exceed so much where they're not able to like make revenue and profit. So just to repeat again, the categories: rent, inventory, payroll, marketing, and miscellaneous costs. And again, it's a
Hmm.
$5,000 loan.
So that's really tricky, mainly because I can't see. I'm a visual person, so like, but when it comes to being or prioritizing, I guess, what needs to be done, I mean, you're saying rent, so it sounds like there's a brick and mortar, and we all know that, if you're late on rent, you can run into some trouble. So I'm gonna say that would be definitely a priority. Now, what's key is you're saying you want to make sure that the expenses don't exceed essentially the income, right? If we're just going to prioritize things, I would say rent, inventory are the most important things. I think marketing is one of those things that you can kind of bootstrap marketing to a certain extent. Like if you're creative, you can grab a bunch of friends and record stuff when it comes to the marketing aspect. So I feel like that's an area where you could cut costs on. You said miscellaneous. What's miscellaneous? Is that like soap for the bathroom? Is that toilet paper? Like
I
what is
mean,
that?
probably like little stuff like that, I guess.
Yeah, so I mean, if it's a brick and mortar, I'm just going to assume that at some point they've built a relationship with certain vendors and are able to get things in bulk. So that's something that can definitely keep costs down as well. Buying in bulk does allow for wholesale pricing, from what I understand. But also, too, I think what's even more important is loans versus grants. This is something that a lot of people don't talk about. And I just had a client mention this where she received a grant or a loan, sorry, a business loan, but wasn't educated on everything that comes with a loan. We know that loans we have to pay back versus grants where you typically don't have to pay back. So I think a little lesson in this scenario is being 100% sure of what you're accepting so that you don't get into situations where you owe $36,000 on a business loan you took 10 years ago because you just didn't understand how it worked. So that's a little tidbit. Now, I will say this. I use a budgeting sheet. That's actually what the financial analysis is that I mentioned a couple minutes ago. And that allows people to organize their money. There's a section for income, there's a section for expenses, and it auto calculates what their disposable income is at the end of every month, whether they're in a surplus or a deficit. So, definitely having all of those things written out and being very aware of what your rent is, what your inventory costs are, how much it's going to cost to pay out your employees. I've noticed that a lot of business owners actually don't have something that tracks that. And so when it's time for us to go over these things, they literally have nothing. So we're kind of just like, okay, well, can you start tracking for the next 3 months? So that's another tidbit as well for people who are business owners. From when you start making your first paycheck, your first income, whatever the case is, start tracking because no one's going to do that for you. So you want to make sure that you're tracking those things so that when we need to organize, when we need to implement a grant or a loan, we have the numbers that can help us organize those things.
Yeah, I think that's really, really important. I love how you kind of differentiated the loans and the rents as well, because again, we do tend to get confused. Like when you get a loan, it's like, all right, that's good. I'm getting the money. Like it's all for me. But
Yeah.
you don't realize you got to pay it back. And, like I probably just add like a follow up question to that. Like, what would you say would be the best steps to take when it comes to like paying back a loan? Because I think for a lot of people, their concern is like, okay, I get the loan now, but it's just like, how do I go about this? Do I kind of do like sub payments, or like is there a certain time period I want to give myself to fully pay off this loan, and how I'm going to go about it? So like what would you say are some of the steps someone should take once they receive a loan?
So I really think it depends on the interest rate as well on the loan. So some people get loans that don't have interest rates, and interest rates when it comes to debt just means a fee. So, a typical credit card has an interest rate of 19%, right? If you get a loan, let's say, and it's from like a business organization and they're giving out loans and they're not charging interest, then you could potentially take longer to pay it because you're not getting those fees every single month. However, as soon as there's interest on a loan, when you are only paying the minimum payment per month or you're missing payments, it's that extra interest that's getting tapped on. So I really think it depends on how much it is. if there's interest, and also how long you want to take to pay this back. There are things called payment calculators where you can actually plug in loan amount, monthly payment, interest rate to see how long it would take to pay it off, and that would help you determine how long you really want to pay it off. But then also too, you got to make sure that if you're not making, let's say you use this money to invest in your business, but you're not seeing a profit, you still got to pay the loan back. The whole purpose is for it to kickstart, funnel some money into your business so you can achieve things faster than if you were to just save that money. But regardless of if that loan provided you with income or not, you still have an outstanding loan. So I would say anybody who currently has a loan or is thinking about getting one, you want to understand credit and debt first. So again, we don't get taught these things, but you really want to understand the impact of interest rates. You want to understand, how credit works and how certain things affect your credit. And then if you're currently paying back a loan, I would honestly encourage you to book a consultation with me because I've noticed that a lot of people aren't paying their loans back properly. And it's mainly just because they don't understand interest rates, they don't understand minimum payments, they don't understand those kind of things. So the way that they're doing it, it would take them maybe 30, 40 years. But if they just do a little bit of shifting, it might take them 10 years or maybe even 5 years. So information is key when it comes to credit and debt. That's what I've noticed.
Okay, yeah, I really, really appreciate that because I know the split interest rate. That's another thing a lot of people may not know, and I feel like it's not talked about enough when it comes to paying off loans. And you mentioned minimum payments. Now, I know sometimes, like I won't lie, like it's sometimes useful, but I've heard from other people saying like you should even try going for the minimum payment. Like, let's say for example, $10,000 in a loan, and like the minimum payments like 150. Some people say don't even pay 150, pay as much as you can depending on how you're optimizing your income. So like if you can pay 300, pay 300,
Right.
don't just live it to 150. Like do you feel sometimes that might have to be the case where someone could just pay more than what the minimum payment requires?
Yeah. So, of course, it's dependent on the loan, but most of the time, these institutions are telling you pay the minimum payment because it's going to make them as much money as possible, right? You got to pay attention to the amount owing and the minimum payment. If they're telling you pay $50 on a $3,000 balance, $50 compared to $3,000 is not a lot of money. And so most of your $50 is going to go towards interest and not the principal. Now, if you added an extra $50 to that, you would cut down the amount of time it's going to take to pay off that loan. So yes, you always want to pay more than the minimum. $20, $30, $50, whatever makes sense to you, whatever you have the capacity for, you have to pay more than the minimum so that you can pay as much of the interest as possible. So definitely, when we see that $50 payment and the balance is really huge, people think, oh, I'm doing my job, I'm doing my part, I'm making this minimum payment. That's where that payment calculator comes in because it's going to show you it's going to take you 16 years to pay it off, maybe even 80 years, depending on the interest rate and the balance. So whatever minimum they tell you, you have to pay more than that. Actually, it literally says on the statement, it will say if you pay $50 a month, it will take 11 years, 12 years, 13 years, 20 years to pay it off. It literally says that. But most people actually don't know how to read statements, so they never get to that part. But yes, always pay more than the minimum. That's like a golden rule.
Okay, perfect. I hope everyone heard what she said. I hope you're jotting down notes.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right. I do want to wrap things up. I just have a little closing topic, and it's basically surrounding the accessibility of financial literacy, something we actually mentioned at the top of the episode. Some people want to know, like, is it actually working? Are people being able to, get access to certain tools and resources? And if it is working, how can we do more to get it out to different people who need it? I know we mentioned before the educational system. You mentioned for some schools or some courses like financial literacy, it's an elective. Like now it becomes a question, why isn't this something that's required? Why isn't this something that we should be learning? It should be a matter of like we're doing this. I did not learn about taxes at all during my like university days, my high school days, and it's just like, why am
Yeah.
I sitting here learning about y equals mx plus b when I could be learning about how to do my taxes? Just like it's ridiculous. So like, I want to ask you in terms of just about the accessibility of financial literacy. Just do you see it working where the resource and the tools are getting to the people? And I'm pretty sure you're probably gonna say yes because you are definitely one of the individuals that's making sure of that. But
Yeah.
how would you say can be like, different other approaches to outsource those tools and resources to even more people who really need it?
Yeah. So, unfortunately, I mean, we know how the traditional institutions and systems work. They are meant to keep us where we're at and produce employees instead of business owners. So, if financial literacy was a mandatory course in schools, you would see a lot of people explore entrepreneurship a lot earlier, which they don't want because they do make the most money off of us as employees, right? Now, yes, it does need to be a mandatory course because there's a huge lack in that area. I think one thing that can help, I personally put on a lot of free workshops. I also get hired to put on free workshops, schools, university, organizations. So there's a lot of accessibility there. I believe that there needs to be a lot more partnerships with like the bigger brands, the bigger organizations to come together and put on like a financial literacy conference. Really what we're trying to do, or we should be trying to do, is making this thing fun. Like putting on an event that it gives a party vibe, but it's not a party. So the social aspect, the networking aspect, games, activations, making it really fun and interesting and cool to be immersed in the topic of financial literacy, right? But definitely it needs to be in the schools. There also needs to be, I believe, a push to encourage people to get into finance related fields because I didn't know anything about money and I was able to get my license and pursue this career. And we want to encourage younger folk and pretty much anybody that you can be in the finance industry, even if you don't like math or even if you're not good at math or not good with numbers. It's not about that. You can literally learn to do all of this stuff, right? So, yeah, I would say, social media as well. There's a lot of information on social media, which is great, but also not so great because I've noticed there's a lot of people who they're just sharing their opinions. It's not really fact. And you want to be, mindful of vetting people and making sure that the people who are talking about certain topics, have some sort of credibility. And yeah, I would just say whoever's in the finance space already, keep providing value. So, people like to charge for consultations. I think that's not as accessible as giving a free consultation where you can just share a couple things with people so that they can be better off. And yeah, if you're in the finance space, just sharing as much information as you can and educating without expectation. I just share the information because I know it's going to help somebody. And I know that my reputation will be sustainable and that people will come back and I'll have a consistent client base, but I just share the information because I know it's important and I know that people need to hear it. And by educating without expectation, you are literally contributing positively to improving financial literacy for all.
I mean, I feel like there's nothing else for me to say. You kind of you said everything that needed to be said, so that's perfect. But I will comment on this. You mentioned how you're trying, and even educators of financial literacy trying to like make financial literacy fun, and I think that's a great way of saying it. Because again, when you hear financial literacy, the first thing we want to do is kind of like we shiver to the
Yes.
sense it's just like let's switch the topic. We don't want to hear about that. No one wants to talk about that. But it should be fun. But like you mentioned, still like it's a party, but it's not a party. Like you're able to, go out and network, but there's little tidbits that you're picking up that's like, okay, this is actually really good and really should take those next steps to examine my financial situation, figure out what I need to do. And it should be something where it's good for you. It shouldn't be a chore. It shouldn't feel something where it's a assignment or a task. This is basically bettering your personal and financial lifestyle in a way. So I really love just how
Yes.
you mentioned that. Because listen, we do need to just take these situations for a more like fun approach. Now, obviously, like don't take it as a joke because money is nothing to play around with. I think we all can agree we're all looking for money. We're looking to save and invest. We're not trying to lose on money, but it should be something where the conversation is very inviting, not something that you deviate from. So I definitely resonate with what you just said.
Yep, my mission is, or I always say that financial literacy does not have to be stiff. It doesn't have to be overwhelming. It also doesn't have to make you feel less than or inadequate. It can really be empathetic, inviting, educational, and that's the key. I've been running something called finance trivia, where, depending on where I go, I just host a finance trivia game where people can guess the answers to finance related questions. And if they get it right, they can win a prize. And if they get it wrong, it's just a teachable moment. And just doing that in like a game setting, I found it's garnered good response because it's like you almost forget that you're learning about finance. You're just in the moment of like, oh, this is a trivia game, like this is cool. So just really combining the two is something that's enjoyable for me to lead and to see other people participate in.
Perfect, cool. But that's pretty much it. Shay, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time and just all the knowledge you drop. I'm telling you guys, if your notebooks aren't full, run back the episode because you probably missed a couple of details.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
Of course, of course. It's always a pleasure to have someone come on and just be able to share what they're doing, but also educate. That's something that we prioritize a lot when it comes to the safe room, a safe space for sharing, narration, and knowledge mobilization. Just being able to talk, have these open conversations, but also have key takeaways as well. So last thing before we close this off, where can people contact you or find you on social media? I know you mentioned the consultation calls, but where exactly can people go to see all the things that you're doing?
Yes, so social media, Instagram at Finance for the Culture. I have all the links in my bio. There's a link to book a consultation. There are links for upcoming events that I'm going to be a part of as well. There's also a link to my most recent feature on TVO that you can check out as well. And you can also email me at info@financefortheculture.ca, and I'd be more than happy to chat with you.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much, Shane. Thank you to everyone listening to The Safe Room. You can find us on Instagram at The Safe Room Official. You can also check out our YouTube channel, The Safe Room Podcast. We're slowly getting back into uploading full videos on YouTube. So that just means more editing for me. So yeah, it's a very exciting time, I guess, if you want to put it like that. If you want to go check out the podcast, please give us a rating and a review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. That's something I'm looking to get a little bit more on. So if you love the episodes, let us know. Let us know what you feel about it. Give us a rating, 5 stars. Come on, like I'm waiting for your 5 stars. I know they're coming in, but yeah, definitely go check out the podcast when you can. But again, to everyone listening, thank you so much. Thank you again to Shay, and we'll see you guys next time.
Take care.